The Galactic Concord had existed for 12 million years. It was a union of 9,000 different species from across half the galaxy. Some members were as old as the stars themselves. Others had joined only a few thousand years ago. They had different bodies, different minds, different ways of thinking. But they all agreed on one thing. They all followed one rule that nobody ever broke. Deep in the oldest archives of Concord Station, there was a room that few ever visited. The walls were made of the densest material in the universe, and carved into those walls, in every language ever spoken by any species, was a single warning. The third planet of Sol is forbidden. Do not observe, do not contact, do not land. There is no exception, there is no appeal. No one knew who had written it. The date stamp on the warning was 3 million years older than the Concord itself. It bore the seal of the architects, the mysterious race that had built wonders across the galaxy and then vanished without a trace. They had left behind structures that could survive the death of stars. They had created machines that still worked after millions of years, and they had written this warning and never explained why. Ambassador Eth of the sovereignty of endless stars stood in that ancient room and read the words carved into the wall. His 4 eyes moved slowly across the text. His long fingers traced the strange seal of the architects. He had come to Concord Station with a simple mission. His empire needed new territory. His people were dying. He needed to find them a new home. The sovereignty had once been great. 1,000 years ago, they had ruled over 200 star systems, but something had gone wrong with their biology. Their birth rates had collapsed. Their population grew older and older. Now they controlled only 50 systems, and those were half empty. They needed resources. They needed workers. They needed a miracle. Eth had spent 3 days looking at star maps with Concord officials. They had shown him many worlds. Some were too hot, some were too cold, some were already claimed by other species. And then he had noticed something strange. There was a small yellow star on the edge of the galaxy. The maps showed nothing around it. No data, no surveys, just empty space. "What about this system?" he had asked. The Concord official, a tall being with silver skin, had frozen. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he quietly told Eth about the forbidden room. Now Eth stood here, reading words that were older than most civilizations. He did not understand. The architects had been the most powerful beings ever to exist. They had built rings around stars. They had moved planets like toys. What could possibly make them afraid of one small world? He left the archive and sought out the oldest members of the Concord. He spoke with the hive queens of who had 1 million years of memory stored in their shared mind. They refused to discuss it. He spoke with the gas beings of the outer reach who had watched galaxies form and die. They changed the subject. He spoke with the machine minds of the digital collective who had records of everything. They simply went silent. Finally, he found the seers of. The seers were crystalline beings, ancient beyond measure. They did not move. They did not speak often, but they saw things that others could not see. They remembered things that others had forgotten. Eth found them in their meditation chamber, their bodies glowing with soft inner light. "I want to know about the forbidden world," Eth said. "I want to know why it is sealed." For a long time, the seers said nothing. Eth began to think they would ignore him like the others. Then one of them spoke, its voice like wind through crystal caves. "The architects feared nothing in this universe. They built wonders that spanned galaxies. They tamed black holes. They created life where none existed. They were as gods to every species that came after them." The seer paused. Its inner light flickered. "And they sealed that world away. They wrote their warning in every language. They made it law before there was law, and they never spoke of it again." "But why?" Eth demanded. "What is on that planet?" "Life," the seer answered. "A species, young, primitive, violent. They have not even left their own world yet." Eth's 4 eyes widened. Primitives, the architects feared primitives. "The architects did not fear what that species was," the seer said slowly. They feared what that species would become. They looked into all possible futures, and in every future that species burned bright and terrible. Some futures were good, some were very, very bad, but in all of them that species changed everything. Ed thought about this. A primitive species, not even spacefaring, protected by a warning from beings who had moved stars. It made no sense, or perhaps it made a different kind of sense. Maybe the architects were wrong, he said. Maybe they wanted that world for themselves. Maybe they hid it away so no one else could have it. The seer's light dimmed. You should not think such thoughts. The architects are gone, Eth said. They vanished. Perhaps they were not as wise as everyone believes. Perhaps their warnings are just old superstition. Perhaps, the seer agreed. Or perhaps they vanished because they understood what was coming. Perhaps they saw the future and chose to leave before it arrived. Eth did not reply. His mind was already racing with possibilities. His empire was dying. They needed a new world rich with resources and life. The ancient maps showed that the forbidden planet was perfect. Temperate climate, oxygen atmosphere, abundant water, and the natives were primitive, weak, divided. Easy prey. He returned to his ship and set a course for home. He needed to speak with his emperor. He needed to propose something that had not been done in 12 million years. He needed to break the oldest law in the galaxy. Behind him in their meditation chamber, the seers have watched his ship disappear into hyperspace. They had seen this moment in their visions. They had hoped it would not come, but the future was the future, and some things could not be stopped. One of them sent a message to the ancient watcher stationed at the edge of the forbidden system. The message was simple. It begins. And across the galaxy, in a small blue world that knew nothing of empires or ancient laws, 7 billion humans went about their ordinary lives, unaware that their future was about to change forever. The throne room of the sovereignty was cold and dark. The emperor liked it that way. He was old now, older than any of his kind had been in centuries. His scales had turned. His 4 eyes had grown dim. But his mind was still sharp, and when Eth told him about the forbidden world, that mind began to calculate. "You are certain of this?" the emperor asked. His voice was weak but steady. "A temperate world rich with life, protected only by ancient words." "I am certain, my emperor," Eth said. He knelt before the throne, his head bowed. "The conquered species are afraid to even speak of it. They believe the old warnings like children believe ghost stories. But I have studied the data. The planet is perfect for our needs." And the natives? Primitive, they have basic technology, nothing more. They have not even colonized their own moon properly. They are divided into hundreds of small nations that fight among themselves. They would fall in days. The emperor was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his advisors shifted nervously. They had all heard the stories about the forbidden world. Even in the sovereignty, parents told children to behave or the monsters from Saul would come for them. It was silly, of course, just old tales. But still, the warning had stood for so long. "The conquered will not approve," one advisor said. "If we attack a protected world, they will." "They will do nothing," the emperor interrupted. "The conquered is weak. They talk and debate and discuss. By the time they decide to act, we will already be finished. We will take what we need and leave. They will complain. They will send strongly worded messages, and nothing will change." General stepped forward. He was the commander of the sovereignty fleet, a warrior who had won a dozen campaigns. His body was covered in battle scars. His eyes were hard and cold. "My emperor, I have studied the ancient warnings. They speak of danger, but they give no details, no facts, no evidence. I believe they are superstition, nothing more. The architects vanished millions of years ago. Perhaps they made mistakes. Perhaps they were afraid of shadows." "And if they were not," another advisor asked, "what if the warnings are real?" Laughed. It was not a kind sound. "Then we will deal with whatever we find. I have 300 warships. I have weapons that can crack continents. What could primitives possibly do against such power? The Emperor nodded slowly. He had made his decision. Prepare the fleet. You will take everything we have. You will go to this forbidden world. You will subjugate the natives and strip the planet of resources. And you will return before the conquered even knows we have left. It will be done, my Emperor said. He saluted and turned to leave. Eth watched him go. For a moment he felt something strange. Was it doubt, fear? He pushed the feeling away. This was their only chance. The sovereignty was dying. Without new resources, without new workers, they would fade away within a few generations. They had no choice. The next few weeks were busy. Ships were recalled from across the empire. Weapons were loaded. Soldiers were trained. The entire military might of the sovereignty was gathered into one massive fleet. 300 warships. Each one was a kilometer long, bristling with weapons that could turn cities to ash. They carried landing craft, ground vehicles, and enough soldiers to occupy a planet. It was the largest fleet the sovereignty had assembled in 500 years. On the day of departure, General stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory. He could see his fleet stretching out into space. So many ships, so much power. He felt pride swelling in his chest. Set course for the Sol system, he commanded. We jump in 1 hour. His officers hurried to obey. Navigation computers calculated the route. Engines powered up. The fleet began to move into formation. As they prepared to enter hyperspace, they passed a small conquered observation post on the edge of sovereignty territory. It was an old station, mostly automated. But there was one living being aboard, a watcher whose job was to observe and report. The watcher was ancient. He had served at this post for 4,000 years. He had seen ships come and go. He had seen empires rise and fall. Nothing surprised him anymore. But when he saw the sovereignty fleet, when he calculated their trajectory, when he realized where they were going, something broke inside him. His training told him to report. His duty told him to alert the conquered. But for a long moment, he could not move. He could only stare at as 300 warships disappeared into hyperspace. Then he did something he had not done in 2,000 years. He wept. Slowly, with shaking hands, he composed his message to Conquered Station. It was short. There was no point in long explanations. Everyone who mattered would understand. The sovereignty has broken the seal. They go to Sol. May the stars have mercy on them, for the humans will not. He sent the message. Then he turned off his screens. He did not want to watch what came next. In hyperspace, General reviewed his battle plans. The invasion would be simple. They would emerge behind the system's largest planet, using it as cover. They would jam all primitive communications. They would descend on the population centers and demand surrender. If the natives refused, they would demonstrate their power by destroying a few cities. The natives would fall in line. They always did. How long until we arrive? He asked. 3 days, General. Nodded. 3 days. Then they would claim their prize. The dying sovereignty would be reborn, and the stupid old warnings would be proven false forever. He went to his quarters to rest. He slept well that night. He dreamed of victory and glory and the gratitude of his emperor. He did not dream of what was waiting for him. He did not dream of 7 billion beings who had spent their entire existence fighting, struggling, and surviving against impossible odds. He did not dream of a species that had crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars with bloody hands and unbreakable will. He did not dream of humans. But he would meet them soon enough, and he would learn why the architects had been so afraid. He would learn the hard way as his ships burned and his soldiers died and his certainty crumbled to dust. But that was still 3 days away. For now he slept, peaceful and confident, sailing toward the greatest mistake any empire had ever made. The sovereignty fleet emerged from hyperspace behind Jupiter, exactly as planned. General stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at with satisfaction. The gas giant filled half the view, its storms swirling in endless patterns. Behind it, hidden from the inner system, his 300 warships spread out in perfect formation. "Begin scanning the system," he ordered. "Find me the target world." His officers worked quickly. Data began flowing across their screens, and almost immediately they started to look confused. "General," one officer said slowly, "there is debris everywhere." "Debris?" "Yes, sir. Satellites, thousands of them, in orbit around the third planet, around the fourth planet, even out here near the gas giants. They have probes scattered across the entire system." Walked to the scanning station and looked at the data himself. His officer was right. The primitives had thrown machines in every direction. There was no order to it, no efficiency. They had simply hurled technology into space and left it there. "Wasteful," he muttered. "They cannot even keep their own orbit clean. This will be even easier than expected." "Sir, we are also detecting radio signals. Many radio signals. They seem to be communicating constantly on thousands of different frequencies." "Can we jam them?" "Yes, sir. It will be simple. Their technology is very primitive." "Good. Begin jamming as soon as we clear the gas giant. I want them deaf and blind when we arrive." The fleet moved forward. They swept past Jupiter and its moons, past the asteroid belt, past the red planet the primitives called Mars. As they approached Earth, activated the jamming signal. In an instant, every satellite, every radio tower, every communication device on the planet went silent. He expected panic. He expected confusion. He expected the primitives to stumble around blindly while his ships descended from the sky. What he got was silence for exactly 7 minutes. Then the signals came back. "General," his communications officer shouted, They have found ways around our jamming. They are switching frequencies. They are using physical cables. They are bouncing signals off their moon. Sir, they adapted in 7 minutes." Felt the first small seed of doubt plant itself in his mind. He pushed it away. "It does not matter. Prepare the landing forces. Target the largest population centers. We will demand their surrender." His ships descended through the atmosphere. They came down over the great cities of Earth, casting shadows that blocked out the sun. Millions of humans looked up and saw alien warships for the first time in their history. Broadcast his message on every frequency. "People of this world, your planet now belongs to the sovereignty of endless stars. You will surrender immediately. You will submit to our rule. Those who obey will be treated fairly. Those who resist will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond." He sat back in his command chair and waited. 1 hour. That was generous. Most primitive species surrendered within minutes. They saw the power above them and knew they could not win. It was the logical choice. The only choice. The hour passed. No surrender came. "Perhaps they did not understand," an officer suggested. "Their language is strange, maybe." The first missile hit a sovereignty ship at exactly the 61-minute mark. It was a primitive thing, a chemical rocket with a nuclear warhead. It should not have done any damage. Sovereignty shields were designed to stop weapons far more powerful. But the humans had not fired one missile. They had fired hundreds. They had fired from everywhere at once. And they had aimed not at the shields but at the ship's engine intakes, at sensor arrays, at communication dishes. Within seconds, 3 ships were blind. Within minutes, 2 were crippled. Within an hour, the first sovereignty warship fell from the sky and crashed into the ocean below. Could not believe what he was seeing. Return fire, destroy their launch sites. His ships fired. Cities burned. Millions died in instants. Any sane species would have surrendered then. Any rational being would have seen that resistance was hopeless. The humans did not surrender. They fought harder. Pilots flew their primitive aircraft directly into sovereignty ships, sacrificing themselves to cause any damage they could. Ground forces destroyed bridges, collapsed tunnels, and burned their own supplies rather than let them be captured. In one city, human soldiers detonated a nuclear weapon in the middle of their own streets, killing themselves and every sovereignty soldier who had landed there. Watched the reports come in with growing horror. This was not how war worked. This was not how rational beings behaved. They were supposed to calculate their odds and surrender when they could not win. They were supposed to preserve themselves. These humans did not seem to care about survival. They only cared about hurting their enemy. On the fifth day, his communications officer detected something strange. "General, the humans have accessed our secure channels." "Impossible, our encryption is." "They broke it, sir. They broke it in 4 days, and they are sending us a message." Felt cold, play it. The flickered, a human face appeared. It was a female, her features hard and determined. Behind her could see other humans working frantically at computer terminals. The female spoke, and the ship's computer translated her words. "Attention, invaders. This is a message from the people of Earth. We received your ultimatum. Here is our response." She leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to look directly at. "You came to our home, you killed our people. You burned our cities, you thought we would surrender, you thought we would break. You were wrong." She smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "We have fought each other for 10,000 years. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that killed millions. We do not surrender. We do not submit. We do not break, ever." She held up a piece of paper with symbols on it. "This is your ship's technical specifications. We downloaded them from your own computers. We already have teams working on reverse engineering your technology. In a week, we will understand your shields. In a month, we will have our own." She dropped the paper and stared into the camera. "So here is our counteroffer. Leave now. Leave and never come back. Or stay, and we will show you what humans do to those who threaten our home." The message ended. The screen went dark. Sat in his command chair and realized for the first time that he might have made a terrible mistake. The ancient warnings echoed in his mind. The seer's words about a species that changed everything. He had thought they were just primitives. He had thought they would be easy prey. He was beginning to understand how wrong he had been. General pulled his fleet back to high orbit. He needed time to think. He needed to understand what he was dealing with. His advisors gathered in the war room, their faces showing the same confusion and fear that felt in his own hearts. They had lost 40 ships in 6 days. 40 ships against a species that had never left its own planet. It was impossible. It was humiliating. And it was getting worse. "Show me everything we know about these humans," commanded. His intelligence officers began their presentation. What they showed him made his blood run cold. The humans did not have a unified government. They were divided into nearly 200 separate nations. These nations had different languages, different cultures, different beliefs, and they had spent their entire history at war with each other. Not small wars, not occasional conflicts. Constant, endless, brutal warfare spanning their entire existence as a species. In the last 100 of their years alone, an officer reported, they have fought 2 global wars. The first killed 17 million. The second killed 70 million. They developed weapons specifically designed to kill as many of their own kind as possible. Images appeared on the screen. Saw mushroom clouds rising over cities. He saw gas weapons choking soldiers in trenches. He saw bombs that could flatten entire neighborhoods in a single blast. "They call this one a nuclear weapon," the officer continued. "They have thousands of them, enough to destroy their entire planet several times over. They built these weapons not to fight aliens. They built them to fight each other." Stared at the images. Why would any species do this? "We do not know, General. Their psychology is unlike anything we have encountered. They seem to enjoy conflict. They compete over everything. Resources, territory, ideas, even games. Competition is built into their very nature. Another officer spoke up. Sir, there is more. We have intercepted their historical databases. Their entire civilization is built on war. Their greatest heroes are warriors. Their most important inventions came from military research. Even their scientific progress was driven by the desire to build better weapons. And now, said slowly, they have a common enemy for the first time in their history. Yes, sir. All their nations have stopped fighting each other. They are sharing technology, sharing resources, sharing soldiers. Enemies who were threatening each other with nuclear weapons last month are now working together in the same command centers. Closed his eyes. This was a nightmare. He had expected to conquer a divided, primitive species. Instead, he had united the most warlike beings in the galaxy against himself. But the worst news was still coming. General, his science officer said carefully, we need to discuss the speed of their adaptation. What do you mean? Sir, they captured one of our crashed ships on the third day, a small scout vessel with basic shielding technology. We assumed it would take them years to understand it. Decades, perhaps. And they cracked the basic principles in 6 days. They are already building prototypes. Our scans show human factories operating at full capacity, producing components based on our designs. They are not just copying our technology. They are improving it. Felt sick, how is that possible? We believe it is because of their competitive nature. They have thousands of scientists working on the problem simultaneously. They share data instantly across their global networks. When one team makes progress, every other team learns from it immediately. They call it collaboration, but it is more like a race. Every scientist wants to be the one who solves the puzzle first. A new alert flashed on the screens. Looked up and saw something that made his heart stop. A ship was rising from Earth's surface. It was ugly, crude, covered in welding marks and rough patches. It looked like it had been built in a junkyard, but it was flying. It was leaving the atmosphere, and it was heading directly toward his fleet. What is that thing? He demanded. Sir, it appears to be a cargo vessel, a civilian ship. They have modified it with our shield technology, crude but functional. One ship. They are attacking us with one ship. The human vessel did not slow down. It did not try to maneuver. It flew in a straight line directly at the nearest sovereignty cruiser. Sir, they are on a collision course. Destroy them. His ships opened fire. The human vessel took hit after hit. Its shields flickered and failed. Its hull began to break apart, but it kept coming. Even as it died, it kept coming. At the last moment, the human ship adjusted course slightly. It dove directly into the cruiser's open hangar bay. And then it exploded. The nuclear device on board was small by human standards. Just a tactical warhead, nothing special. But it detonated inside the cruiser, past its shields, in the middle of its flight deck. The sovereignty cruiser broke in half. 2,000 soldiers died in an instant. As the debris spread across orbit, his communication officer spoke in a shaking voice. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from Earth. It is being broadcast on all frequencies. The pilot's final words. Play it. A human voice filled the bridge. Male, young, completely calm despite what he had just done. Welcome to Earth. Then static. Sat in his command chair and stared at the wreckage of his cruiser. He thought about the old warnings. He thought about the seer's words. He thought about a species that built weapons to destroy themselves, and then, when faced with an alien threat, turned those weapons outward with joy. He had made a terrible mistake, the worst mistake in the history of his people. And he had no idea how to fix it. The humans were not going to stop. They were not going to negotiate. They were going to fight until they won or until every last one of them was dead, and was beginning to suspect that even death would not stop them. They would find a way to keep fighting from beyond the grave. because that was what humans did. That was what they had always done. They survived, they adapted, they fought. And they never, ever gave up. The battle for Earth lasted 3 months. It did not end the way General had planned. In the first month, the humans learned to shoot down sovereignty ships with modified missiles. In the second month, they built their own fleet of crewed warships, each one piloted by volunteers who knew they would probably die. In the third month, they started winning. Died on the 63rd day. The humans did not kill him with advanced weapons or clever tactics. They boarded his flagship with nothing but magnetic boots, cutting torches, and absolute determination. They walked through the halls of the Eternal Victory, fighting hand-to-hand against soldiers twice their size. They lost dozens of warriors for every deck they captured. They did not care. They kept coming. When they finally reached the bridge, met them with a weapon in his hand. He fought well. He killed 3 of them before they brought him down. His last thought was disbelief. How could primitives defeat the greatest general of the sovereignty? How could this be happening? He died without understanding. That was probably a mercy. Of the 300 ships that had come to Earth, only 19 escaped. They limped back towards sovereignty space, carrying wounded soldiers and terrible news. Behind them, they left the wreckage of an empire's pride and the bodies of 100,000 warriors. The survivors also carried something else. During the retreat, the humans had uploaded files to every ship they could reach, technical data, scientific research, historical records, and a message. We know where you came from, we know how to get there, and we are very, very angry. The 19 ships reached sovereignty space 2 months later. By then, the conquered had already learned what had happened. Ancient communication networks carried the news across the galaxy. Every species, from the youngest to the oldest, heard the story of what the sovereignty had done and what had happened to them. Emergency session was called at Concord Station. Every member species sent representatives. The great chamber, designed to hold thousands, was filled to capacity. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. The sovereignty's surviving ambassador, a young female named Eth, stood before the assembly. She was Eth's daughter. Her father had died of shame 3 weeks after the fleet's defeat. Now she carried the burden of his mistake. "We admit our crime," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. "We broke the ancient law. We attacked the forbidden world. We ask the conquered for protection from what we have awakened." The chamber exploded in noise. Thousands of voices shouted accusations, demands, questions. Order took a long time to restore. Finally, the crystalline seers of spoke. Their voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "The conquered cannot protect you. No one can. You have awakened something that cannot be put back to sleep." "Then tell us what to do," Eth pleaded. "Tell us how to survive." The seers were silent for a long moment. When they spoke again, their words carried the weight of ages. The architects did not fear humanity for what they were. They feared them for what they would become. A species forged in competition, hardened by constant war, driven by a need to survive against all odds. The architects saw all possible futures. In some, humanity brought light and peace to the galaxy. In others, they brought fire and destruction. But in all futures, they changed everything. The seer's light dimmed. The architects sealed Earth away to give the galaxy time. Time to grow strong. Time to prepare. That time is now over. The humans have faster-than-light technology. They have the coordinates of sovereignty space. They have the communication frequencies of the conquered. And they have questions. "What kind of questions?" someone asked. Questions about why no one warned them. Questions about what else is out there. Questions about who built the seal around their world. The humans are a curious species. They will not rest until they have answers. As if summoned by the seer's words, an alert sounded throughout the station. A ship had been detected at the edge of the system. It was not a sovereignty ship. It was not a conquered ship. It was human. The vessel was small, barely larger than a shuttle. Its design was crude but functional. It broadcast a signal on all frequencies, requesting permission to approach. For the first time in 12 million years, a human voice was heard in Concord Station. "This is the Earth vessel Discovery to Concord Station. We come in peace. We wish to talk." The chamber fell absolutely silent. After a long moment, the Concord's presiding officer responded, "Earth vessel, you have permission to approach. What is your purpose?" "We have been sent by the United Earth government to establish diplomatic relations. We have questions about the law that sealed our world. We have questions about the species who wrote that law. And we have questions about our place in this galaxy." A pause. "We mean no harm to the Concord. You did not attack us. We have no quarrel with you, but we expect answers, we expect truth, and we expect to be treated as equals." Another pause. "Humanity is awake now. We are coming out into the galaxy whether you want us to or not. You can be our friends or you can be obstacles, but you cannot stop us. No one can stop us. We learned that about ourselves when your friends, the sovereignty, came to our world." The human ship docked at the station an hour later. 3 humans walked out, wearing simple uniforms. They were small compared to most conquered species. They did not look dangerous. But the ancient members of the Concord looked at them and saw something else. They saw a species that had clawed its way up from nothing. A species that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars and its own nuclear weapons. A species that had stared into extinction 100 times and refused to die. They saw the future. The human ambassador, a woman named Sarah, stood before the assembly and spoke. "3 months ago, we did not know you existed. Now we do. We have read your histories. We have studied your laws. We have learned about the architects and their warning." She paused. "We are not angry at the Concord. You did not attack us, but we want to understand. We want to know everything. And then we want to join you. We want to trade with you, learn from you, share our knowledge with yours." She smiled. "Humanity has a lot to offer. We are creative. We are adaptable. We never give up. You have seen what we do to enemies. Imagine what we could do as friends." The assembly was silent. Finally, the oldest seer spoke. "Welcome to the galaxy, humanity. We have been waiting for you for a very long time." Sarah nodded. "Then let's begin. We have 12 million years of history to catch up on." She looked around the great chamber at thousands of alien faces. "And then we need to discuss the future, because ready or not, here we come." In the archives deep below Concord Station, the ancient warning still stood carved in, but someone had added a new line below it, in human script. "We're here now, the rules have changed." And across the galaxy, beings who had lived in peace for millions of years felt something they had almost forgotten. Hope and fear. Because humanity had arrived. And nothing would ever be the same.